Here in Geneva at that Global Refugee Forum today, there's been a lot of optimistic and big talk about the stated aims of the forum, which is addressing the human rights of refugees around the world, also addressing the imbalance between certain countries when it comes to sharing the responsibility for refugees. In fact, that's been a sort of catchphrase, if you like, of the forum so far, the sharing of the responsibilities. And to talk more about this, I'm joined by Egeland, who is the Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking, what are aid agencies like yours coming to this forum looking for when it comes to the sort of outcomes of this? Is there concrete action that you're hoping to see, and what is that?
Well, first of all, we do indeed ask for the responsibility sharing that was promised by world leaders in New York 3 years ago. And that will be more money for refugee and displacement work in the countries where they are, more help for integration for people so that they can get out of being displaced, but also more resettlement of resettlement spaces in the rich and the safe countries. So far, we've seen too little of all of the three, so we are disappointed. The 70 million displaced all over the world, more than 30 million refugees, are disappointed by the world's solidarity.
Why haven't we seen the action that was promised 3 years ago? Because again, it's big optimistic talk that we're hearing today, but these are promises that we've heard before. Why haven't they been delivered on?
Because the mood in too many countries is too negative. So xenophobic and nationalistic populism is the mood in too many countries. So European countries have closed their borders. The United States has really closed her border. It is very hard for people to seek asylum. At the same time, the number of resettlement, which is refugee quotas going to other countries, safe countries, is also going down. I would say, of course, among the 3,000 delegates here, there is a lot of creativity, a lot of offers of help. We're discussing, green energy. We're discussing better ways in providing education for refugees and displaced. But there has to be a political change in very many countries for us to solve the refugee crisis.
Is that something you think is likely to be seen? Because I know, in particular, when it comes to Turkey, one of the co-hosts, we heard the Turkish president speaking today about that imbalance. Turkey has some 3.7 million refugees. In particular, when it comes to the Syrian refugees, you've got a lot of EU countries that talk big on making promises and pledges, but have actually resettled very few. Can the imbalance be addressed if those countries don't take more refugees?
No, the imbalance has to be corrected by countries like us in Europe taking more refugees and also investing even more in refugee relief. Turkey alone takes many more refugees than all of Europe combined. Turkey 3.7 million, the most generous host of refugees in the world. I think what's happening now is that there is unilateral action. Both Turkey is threatening to place 1 million refugees in northern Syria. Some of that will be voluntary. Some of it has to be involuntary, and we will criticize that. Lebanon says we are kneeling under well over 1 million refugees in Lebanon. We need more help. So indeed, there has to be more of a pan-European meeting saying, can we, 30-plus nations, take more refugees, invest more in hope for refugees, more in assistance, because the problem is not being solved at the moment.
I want to talk to you about the resettlement. That's something that has come in for some criticism. But Turkey would say, looking at the EU countries, if they are unwilling, as they have been so far, to take refugee numbers, what are the other solutions when you've got countries like Turkey and Lebanon with so many millions of refugees needing help right now, and winter is coming, and the European countries are simply not taking more refugees in? What can be done?
Well, this harsh winter that is now upon us, the refugees and the displaced will stay where they are. There is no other option for that. In the next years, the solution really is voluntary, informed, safe and assisted return to Syria for the most of the people there. That would mean, among other things, that there is more invested in rebuilding houses, schools, hospitals, electricity, water, sanitation, for all of those who are now sitting in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon or in northern Jordan or in Turkey. But it has to be voluntary. And what I'm worried about is the 1 million there is talk about now placing from Turkey in northern Syria, is that hundreds of thousands of those would not come from that area. People should return to the areas that they come from primarily.
Jan, we see a lot of conferences and talks, and here at this particular forum, it's the first forum of its kind. Again, a lot of optimistic talk, a lot of these buzzwords and catchphrases, sharing the burden of responsibility. You said a little earlier that there was a sense of actual disappointment at where things stand right now. So your takeaway from this, honestly, is this a sort of, great momentum, great optimism whilst everyone's here, but unlikely to translate into action moving forward? And what's your takeaway from this so far? Are you feeling optimistic?
Well, I'm always hopeful, really. And yes, there are very many organizations like the Norwegian Refugee Council who will continue working. We have 14,000 field workers. We helped 9 million people this year. However, I am disappointed by world leaders. No, there are very few countries who open for more refugees to their country. There are very few who really said we will scale up the investment in hope and solutions for refugees. It's too incremental. We need a big effort. We're still waiting for that, but we will fight for it, so we're not giving up.
Thank you very much for joining us. As Jan Egeland, Secretary General for the Norwegian Refugee Council. And that really is the message that's been echoed, as you heard him say there, the talk of looking for actual action on the back of this conference by the UN Secretary General, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. In their addresses to those gathered here at this forum, they've really put an emphasis on this not just being about talk, but about action. There's still another day of the forum to go. And we'll be looking at the detail that actually comes out of that in terms of financial pledges, possible pledges to take more refugees, and what that will actually mean moving forward. But whilst there is that optimistic note, certainly a lot of people we are speaking to here saying that the real importance here is going to be on the detail of this moving forward and whether that will have practical implications on the ground when it comes to addressing the needs of refugees around the world.